YouTube, welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Allie DeAndrea. I'm a hunter, an angler, a public lands advocate, and lover of all things outdoors. Welcome to my channel. Today, we are doing a good old Q&A. I thought I would make this a little more fun by fletching some arrows and drinking a beer with you guys. I posted on my community tab. I'm pulling all of these questions from YouTube exclusively. That's it. It's only you guys here on YouTube, my YouTube fam. Thank you for those of you who did leave questions. I think this is fun because we're able to hang out. Before we really get into this is going to be a very long video. So I hope you have a beer too, because when I'm posting this, it's a Saturday night, and I'm actually filming this on a Friday, and you guys are watching this with me on a Saturday. Okay, without further ado, let's jump in. So before I actually get into the questions, let me tell you a little bit about what I've got going on here. I am fletching some arrows, and if you watched my last video about me changing my arrow setup, you might be a little bit confused why I'm fletching these full metal jackets. It's because although I am changing to a lighter carbon arrow, I am still going to mess with these full metal jackets to see if I can sort of rework them into a setup that I like. It might not work because at the end of the day, the reason why I'm switching arrows in a nutshell is for a slightly lighter arrow that'll fly a little bit faster out of my bow because I have a relatively low draw weight. So anyways, I'm going to fletch these in a couple different configurations. I've already done a couple of these for fletch, woo, and these are with the Max Hunter vein. I'm going to stick with a 4 fletch. I'm gonna stick with the 4 fletch, but I am going to do these 2 arrows with these blazer veins. These are a smaller vein. So it's just, there's going to be a lot of experimenting going on here in the near future. So with all of that said, let's jump into the first question, shall we? Question number 1. Broadheads. Do you prefer different broadheads for different game or one for all? So I jump between all different types of broadheads. That's partially because I hunt different states with different regulations. So some states allow mechanical broadheads and some states do not. So I've messed with fixed blades, I've messed with mechanicals. I tend to enjoy a fixed blade more, but that's not really for any particular reason. I don't have any major complaints, but maybe as I'm diving deep into this arrow rebuild, there will be some new broadhead gains for me on the horizon. So I'll probably touch base with you guys on broadheads in the future, but essentially I use the same broadhead for elk, antelope, mule deer, whitetail, all big game, but for small game, I do change it up. Typically for a grouse, I will use a little judo point. I'll put a little judo point on the screen so you can see what that looks like. Sometimes I'll also use an old broadhead that is dull, that I've been using as a practice arrow, or as, you know, that I've been using during my practice, just so it doesn't go to waste, and those work great too. Next question. What are some of your biggest hurdles with hunting, and how do you deal with these complications? Some of my biggest hurdles, so I'll admit this, even though I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit this, sometimes it gets to me that I don't kill more animals each season, which I hate that I feel that way. For me, I'm out there hunting for the experience and to fill my freezer with meat. And so for me, typically 1 big game animal per year is exactly what I need. But it gets discouraging when I don't fill tags because I'm hunting on public land and I'm really trying to figure this out myself, or Nick and I are trying to figure it out ourselves. And it's tough. But I think because there are, you know, people watching me do this online, that people sometimes expect me to kill a bunch of animals, and that's just not what I'm about. But I sometimes feel that pressure, and it'll get me in this weird mindset for a second, and I have to kind of pull myself out of it and be like, yo, that's not what, you know, that's not what you're here for. You're here for the experience. You're here for me. Just have fun and do your thing. So that's honestly like one of my biggest hurdles with my own hunting journey. Although I think that everyone can kind of relate to that. There is sometimes this weird pressure, like, you know, you want to have a quote unquote successful season because of your peers, which that shouldn't matter, but I don't know. That's why I prefaced that whole statement with, I hate that I'm saying this right now, because, but I'm human, and sometimes things like that do, you know, bug me a little bit. But ultimately, I'm just doing my thing with you guys, so, you know, whatever. Oh, I forgot to get my glue out. All right, next question. Woo! We're starting off strong, people. Abby girl. Nope. Okay. Next question. Okay. Best way to get arrows out of the self-healing foam. So if you have a really high powered bow, you have a really long draw length or a really high draw weight, your arrow is going to get buried. These full metal jackets, because of the aluminum shell on the outside, they actually do pull out of targets a little bit easier, I find. But more than anything, if you have a high power bow, it's just going to be hard. I like to sort of kick the target over, step on it with my foot, and then pull upwards. But yeah, I use an arrow pull as well. That can help, but you might reach the point of sort of no return where your arrow is just buried so deep that it's, you know, it's just not gonna help. So step on your target. That's my tip. What is the biggest fish you've caught? Whoa! The biggest fish I caught was actually very recently. It was a Jack Crevalle. Woo! Here in Florida. Jack Crevalle are normally looked at as not a great fish to catch, just because they're usually small and they usually eat your lure when you're trying to catch a different type of fish. So a lot of people, not that they don't like them, but they just like get annoyed with them, you know? But in my particular area, they get real big, like the one that you just saw, and then I think people like to catch them a lot more because obviously they're huge and they're fun. Second part of your question, what's your favorite bow? So right now I'm shooting a Matthews Avail. I do like it a lot, but I will, whoa! I did not put my arrow wrap on. And this glue is going to harden before I get that on. So I'm gonna wipe this off. See, that's what I get for trying to multitask. Anyways, with my Matthews Avail, the one thing that I kind of miss, I used to shoot a Hoyt Defiant 34, and that means 34-inch axle to axle, which is a relatively long bow for a hunter. I loved the stability that that longer axle to axle gave me, and so I kind of wish that my Avail had a longer axle to axle. I still love it. I really do, but I wish that, you know, I wish that I had a longer axle to axle bow. So that might be something that I'll mess with this year. Next question. What did it feel like to harvest your first animal and to eat it? Abby girl, I'm about to harvest you, girl. The first animal that I killed myself was a grouse, and it was with my bow. So it was a lot different, the first animal that I killed, compared to the first whitetail that I saw die. It was my first hunt with Nick. I was an observant hunter. I didn't even have my own hunting license. I was just watching him hunt, and Nick killed a white-tailed doe, and I watched her die, and that process was a lot harder than the grouse that I had killed with my bow. Killing a small game animal just simply is different than a large game animal, just in terms of like the, you know, the emotional part that comes with it. But the eating part for the grouse, it was phenomenal. That was my first grouse that I ever ate, and I love grouse. I have this like spiritual connection, I feel like, with grouse because of that. But on the whitetail side of things, I was already eating whitetail meat before I saw that deer die. So once that happened, that moment really was when I was like, I'm gonna hunt forever. This is my thing. And that's really what started it all. It was watching Nick kill that deer and yeah, and just seeing like the full process of where my meat comes from. Sorry, it was a little bit of a tangent. Whew. Next question. When are you going to do an overnight kayak trip in 10,000 Islands? I do not know where 10,000 Islands is. But I will say I have been spending a lot of time on my paddleboard. It's like a hybrid paddleboard kayak. I've been fishing and just getting out on it and enjoying it. And it is so much fun. And backpacking is one of my favorite things to do. So that overnight kayaking trip sounds like my kind of trip. Can you talk more about what kind of game to hunt if it's your first time? Ooh, that is that's a good question. So it depends on your specific area. You can start with big game or small game. And I kind of alluded to this from the question about killing my first animal. It's easier both from your like percentage of success and from the emotional standpoint of actually killing an animal and then processing it for food. It's easier to hunt small game first. So start with squirrel or rabbit or upland, and you can Google all of that to find information on how to specifically hunt those species in your area. On the flip side of that, deer hunting is what hooked me. I don't know that I would have fallen in love with hunting and been so apt to become a hunter if I didn't have that venison whitetail experience. It would be the same if you started in a western state for elk or mule deer. But I can remember going on hunts with Nick as an observant hunter. Really, I was just like hanging out with him before I ever witnessed my first real hunt where something had died, and I wasn't that into it. I didn't really care for it, and I don't think we saw that many animals thinking back because I was probably just being loud or was wearing perfume or, you know, whatever, moving too much. So we never saw that many animals, but I was just happy to be hanging out with him. But if I wouldn't have started eating venison and witnessed the moment where the deer passed, I don't know that I would have been hooked. So I'm sorry that I ramble so much, but I do think it helps sort of paint the whole picture. So large game is going to be harder to be successful, most likely. Small game will be easier to be successful and actually kill your first animal. Large game is going to be a little harder to learn how to process and, you know, sort of everything that comes with it. But there's no right or wrong answer. You really can approach it just from what interests you the most. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Do what excites you, because then you'll probably want to stick with it. Like, don't hunt small game if you're not actually interested, or don't hunt big game if you're not actually interested. You feel me? Yeah, I think that's good advice. Next, we all like the feel and excitement of new equipment, but is there something that you have never changed since you started hunting? I love that, and I wish that I did, but I started hunting as an adult. I was in my late teens, early 20s, and I spent so many years just trying to figure it out. I didn't have like a single mentor. I didn't grow up in a hunting family. I didn't have, like, for most people, it's your dad. You know, I didn't have like a person that was teaching me the ropes. I was teaching myself. Nick was teaching himself. We were learning together. He did start a couple years, well, probably 5 years before I did. And he gradually got more serious about it over that time. And then I gradually got more serious about it over time. I ramble so much. But because of that, I feel like I, just within the past 2-3 years, I have started dialing it all in. And so now I have gear that is like tried and true. I know it'll work, and I will probably use it for 30, 40, 50 years to come. So if I was going to base it off of sort of the gear now that I know and love, something that you have never changed since you started hunting. I will say, once I started wearing merino wool, I will never wear another type of base layer. It could be straight up 100% merino wool or a merino wool blend, but I just find that it's going to breathe well. It's going to keep you from stinking like synthetics will. It keeps you warm when wet. It's just a fabulous, wonderful base layer fabric to wear, whether you are an elk hunter or a whitetail hunter. That next to skin merino wool layer all the time, absolutely. It doesn't even matter the brand. There's so many great brands out there making merino wool base layers. It doesn't even need to be a hunting brand, although there are a lot of good hunting brands making good merino. So you catch my drift. It would be merino wool. Next. So my camera died, and you guys now maybe thankfully didn't get to see this, but I absolutely like ruined my arrow. I don't know what happened, but as I was fletching, something got all messed up. So I had to rip everything off. Here's the evidence of that, and start over with this arrow. I also don't know what questions now weren't answered. So I'm gonna back up a little bit. And let's see. Okay. I'm thinking maybe it's this one. So let's jump in here. Here we go. What's the one piece of gear you can't live without? Tell us if it's sponsored. Can't live without questions are hard. So it would be the same answer that I gave earlier with merino wool, but I'll get more specific. This is not sponsored. First Light's merino wool base layers are so good. Out of all of the merino wool base layers that I have tried, those ones tend to be the ones that I'm reaching for the most. I did used to work for First Light, so to be fair, if you want to take that as a bias, you know, whatever. I don't think it's biased because I'm now trying a lot of different brands and a lot of different stuff. So I'm like gathering all of the info. But I do love their base layers so much. Next. Do you plan on making any traditional archery hunting videos or more traditional archery videos this year? You know, I am trying so hard to really dive into my compound bow setup that I don't think that I'm in a place that I should be thinking about traditional archery for hunting yet, unless I wanted to make a complete switch, which I don't. I would like to add it in eventually, sort of add trad bow into my repertoire of hunting weapons, if you will. But at this point in time, I just can't. I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. But Do I want to make more trad archery content in general? Yes, absolutely. Just like fun, messing around, shooting the bow, for sure. Where is one of the most beautiful places you have ever been? Last year, Nick and I went to British Columbia at this place called Fortress Lake. We rode into this high alpine lake on a helicopter and fished and slept there for a couple nights, and it was the most amazing, most beautiful place that I have ever been. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. I absolutely loved it. I would totally go back. The Canadian Rockies are gorgeous. If you're looking for a cool spot, Banff is phenomenally beautiful. That would definitely be a place to check out. How has Corona affected your hunting? So in my particular area, technically speaking, I'm still able to hunt. The public land that I hunt is still open. It's just that I have been feeling sort of guilty when I go out and hunt, just because I know what's going on with the rest of the world and how serious this situation is for so many people, that it's like I can't fully enjoy it. So I haven't been hunting as much as I would be otherwise. But with that said, it does make me really excited for the fall. I'm so looking forward to hunting this fall. I'm really hoping that we're all in a better place and we're able to go back to doing our thing, you know? All right, my beer is almost gone. I don't know if I'm even going to get through fletching a single arrow in this video. Just a couple more questions, because I know this is, we're long here. We're long. Have you found that your views on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram have increased during this crazy time? Because let's be real, we're all inside right now. We're on our computers, on social media. I think that there has been maybe a little spike in Instagram, but I don't actually think that there's been any crazy drastic changes. I thought that there might be, but thus far, it seems relatively normal. Okay, this is the last question. Let's see. Who's it gonna be? Oh, someone asked, dun dun dun, if you had to pick between fishing and hunting, which would you pick and why? You know, this question feels impossible to answer on the surface, but at the end of the day, it's actually pretty easy. This is so dramatic. I would choose hunting because I rely on the meat. But if you took meat out of the equation and it was just experience, I would pick fly fishing, because I could still go backpacking and fly fish, and being on the water is amazing, both in like little mountain trout streams to the ocean, which, oh my God, being on the water on my paddleboard has just like opened up my world to this whole other way to connect. Ooh, so isn't that interesting? I would pick hunting for the meat, but fishing for the experience. Loved it. All right, you guys, that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I did not fletch a single arrow, but I did have a good time, and I hope that you guys had a good time too. So that is it. I will see you guys in the next one.